Hello everyone and welcome to LEGO Star Wars Hot Takes episode 26. As always, if you have any controversial opinions or hot takes about LEGO Star Wars, make sure to go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Hopping right into it, this first one comes from Lingering Won't. He says, uncertain if it's a hot take, but solid colored arms and clone troopers should make a return. And I mean this for every single clone unless the clone has arm printing. The Y arm feels a bit blandish, and having colored arms based on their battalion, example red arms for shock troopers, makes them more vibrant and complements them well. And whether this is a hot take or not, I agree with you. I like the printing on the clone troopers we have today. However, yes, I do prefer the ones from like 2013, 2014, 2015. I just think the colored arms to match their legion, like you said, it just looked so much better. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think the clone troopers today look pretty good. However, I feel like the white arms on top of what's already a mainly white torso and mainly white legs is just a little bit too much, and I think if they brought back the solid colored arms, it would balance out the figure more. This next one comes from Nico. He says, hot take, if a minifigure is valuable because of the print, it's kinda stupid because any detailer can replicate it and scam someone. Exclusive colored pieces or molds and even dual molded pieces are a completely different thing. Now, I completely understand why you might think this, however, this is not necessarily true. I'm gonna do my best here to explain LEGO printing. I'm not an expert. If you're a decaler and you make custom figures, feel free to roast me in the comments if I get something wrong, but I'm gonna try my best to explain it. So basically, there's two types of ways to print minifigures or just print pieces, and the way that most companies that sell custom figures use is called UV printing, which is sort of just like a basic office printer that can print on any surface, and it uses lasers to dry the ink immediately. And again, that's what almost all custom figure companies use, is UV printing. However, LEGO uses what is called pad printing, and a lot of custom figure companies don't use pad printing because it's a lot more expensive and it's a lot more mechanical. And the way pad printing works is that it uses a silicone pad and just presses the ink straight onto the figure or the piece, whatever it is. And usually you can actually tell the difference between a pad printed figure and a UV printed figure. According to bricknerd.com, UV printing leaves the ink slightly raised above the printing surface, while pad printing will maintain a smoother profile. You can typically feel the difference by running your finger over the printing. So basically you can feel if it's a custom figure, and also oftentimes you can tell it's custom just by looking at it because the prints don't look as high quality. And this is no hate towards custom figure companies. All I'm saying is that it's pretty easy to look at a figure and tell the prints are custom and not from LEGO. And if someone that makes custom figures gets a hold of a pad printer and somehow perfectly replicates a really rare figure, from what I've heard around the internet, I'm not sure if this is true, you can correct me in the comments, but LEGO actually does keep an eye out for this and would crack down on it if it ever happened. And again, just from what I've heard, I'm not sure if this is true, but they'll sue people that use pad printing and steal their designs. And also, I mean, I feel like this is just such a super rare thing that could even happen, and I don't even know if it's ever happened to anybody, because again, pad printers are super expensive, and I'm not sure if someone would spend so much money just to end up scamming people, let alone actually be able to get the copies of the designs that LEGO use for their figures. So I mean, you are right, this is definitely a possibility, but I feel like it's just never gonna happen. And you're definitely safe buying rare minifigures on resale sites like Bricklink. Link's Pokemon says, hot take, 4+ sets actually have the potential to be really good, because theoretically it would be a cheap way to get certain minifigs and certain builds, because as we all know, Star Wars 4+ sets are laughably overpriced. If only they were cheap sets, then they wouldn't nearly get as much hate. I mean, I guess what you said about the minifigures could be true, because LEGO could put some cool exclusive minifigures in 4+ sets, and they've actually already been doing this with the Jedi Adventure 4+ sets, but I mean, that's just the figures. The builds in these sets are never gonna be good, and they're always gonna seem overpriced. I mean, they're sets for 4-year-olds. They're super dumbed down builds, and the point of them is to introduce kids into LEGO and kind of teach them how to build. So they're gonna have pretty large pieces with very simple builds, and they're not gonna look very good. And speaking of large pieces, that's the reason most of them seem overpriced, because they'll have pretty high price points relative to their piece counts. But the reasons for this is because the bigger pieces are obviously more expensive to produce for LEGO. I mean, let's say you have a 6x6 plate in a set, that could technically be counted as 36 1x1 plates. So big pieces are more expensive to produce for LEGO, and that's why the prices seem so high on these. But I also feel like to an extent, LEGO does kind of take that idea and run with it and price them up just a little bit too much, but still, that's why they're so expensive. And that actually ties right into our next hot take, which comes from Not Obi-Wan. He says, hot take, price per piece is the stupidest idea how to tell if a set is worth it. Do people think a 1x1 piece costs the same as a 2x4 or even bigger? A better option would be price per grain. gram. And this is very true. It could be price per gram, price per ounce, whatever you want to use. And I actually looked into this idea a few months ago and was going to make a video on it, but that never ended up happening. But basically, I think we should start using price per weight, whether it be grams or ounces or kilos, whatever you want to use, because it would just be so much more accurate and we'd be able to determine the actual value of sets a lot easier and a lot more efficiently. Although the only downside about this is that the data for the weight of most LEGO sets is pretty hard to find. Yes, Bricklink and Brickset both have the weight of some LEGO sets listed in their database. However, they don't have it for all of the sets. I mean, unless it's like a really big UCS set like the Star Destroyer or the Millennium Falcon, you're gonna have a hard time trying to find how much the set weighs unless you weigh it yourself. But in the future, if it's common for the data of a LEGO set's weight to be released, I think we should definitely start using price per weight instead of price per piece. This next one comes from Unoriginal Handle. He says, hot take, I think we should celebrate 10 years of The Force Awakens. Give us a Takodana or Jakku diorama with a First Order and Resistance landing craft and I'll be satisfied. And you know, I actually think this is a good idea. I liked most of the Force Awakens sets. I mean, there were a few bad ones here or there, but that's how it is with every Star Wars movie. But for the most part, the movie had great sets, like Poe's X-Wing, the First Order TIE Fighter, and the First Order Transport, just to name a few. I mean, yes, it's a sequel movie, but out of the 3 sequel movies, I think it's the best one, and it's really the only one that I can enjoy going back and watching. And also, it kind of has a special place in my heart because 2015 was when I first got introduced to the LEGO community, and Force Friday at Toys R Us for the Force Awakens sets, along with going to see the Force Awakens on opening night, was just such a fun experience, and I would love for LEGO to make some more Force Awakens sets. Fabu Breek says, hot take, the 2003 Clone Wars is far superior to the 2008 Clone Wars. It was disappointing that they based the 20th anniversary on the wrong show. Now I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to say which one I think is better, but the 2003 Clone Wars is definitely up there with the 2008 Clone Wars. If any of you guys have not watched this yet, I highly recommend it. It's only like 2 hours long and it's on Disney Plus. It used to be on YouTube, I'm not sure if it still is, but still, if you haven't watched it, just go watch it. It's such a fun little series. The action in it is just so awesome, and it was animated by the same guy who animated Samurai Jack, if you've ever seen that show. So again, if none of you have watched this, I highly recommend it. And then when talking about if LEGO based the 20th anniversary of the Clone Wars on the right show or not, I mean, I honestly didn't expect them to make any 2003 Clone Wars sets. I think when they say 20th anniversary of the Clone Wars, it was obvious it was just going to be from any Clone Wars content. I mean, that makes sense, and it was the best year for them to release the UCS Venator, and I don't really think they based it off the wrong show. I think it was just supposed to be any Clone Wars content. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode. As always, if you have any hot takes or controversial opinions about LEGO Star Wars that you want me to discuss next week, make sure to go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And if you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on the end screen right now.